So I use DaVinci Resolve to make my videos, and I have the studio version, which is the paid version. For the first year that I was making these videos, I was using the free version, and honestly, for pretty much most people in most videos, you've got everything you need in the free version. I would only recommend using the paid version if there are some specific pieces of functionality that you really require. When I encounter any of those studio-only features today, I'll make sure to point them out. What you're looking at now is the first screen that you're going to see when you open Resolve. Now, I'm not going to make this a complete tutorial on how to use DaVinci Resolve. There are plenty of beginners tutorials and intermediate tutorials. You can go learn about the interface, learn about all that there. Today, what I want to do is to show you the tools that I use inside DaVinci Resolve and the techniques that I've come up with in order to get the best results out of the footage that I'm taking. Note that the footage that I'm taking with my camera is shot in 1080p. I'm using a relatively old Nikon DSLR camera. It doesn't shoot 4K video. However, DaVinci Resolve Studio, as I'll show you later, has the capability of upsampling, and so I often publish into 4K. When I start a new project, I could just hit this new project button at the bottom right, but instead I've created a template for my videos. Creating templates in Resolve is very easy. You just set up a project with the settings in any media that you think you want to use over and over again, and then you save it out as a template, a DRP file. So I'm just going to open this template, and today we're using footage of rotifers, so I'm going to do rotifer video demo. It's going to create a new project based on my template, and when I double click it, here's what I see. This project is set up with several defaults that I use pretty much on every video that I make. First, it's important to note that in the settings of this video, I've got it set for 4K. And like I said, I only shoot at 1080p, but because I'm going to upsample and publish at 4K, I want to make sure that my timeline is set to be able to handle 4K before I import my video. Down here, you see my timeline. And as you can see, my timeline isn't starting out completely empty. Again, this is because I've saved a template with various media already on the timeline. If you've seen any of my videos, you'll know that when the video starts, I show my name, Thai Microcosmos, on the screen, usually with some kind of video of an organism or a scene playing inside the letters. And then that text zooms away, and I show the title of this video. And then I go on to show the rest of the video. So what you see down here in the blue and the purple are the text Thai Microcosmos in the blue, and in the purple you see this gray background. I can turn that gray background off and have the default black. It depends on whether or not I'm going to be showing a dark field scene inside the letters or a bright field scene inside the letters. Here in track 5, you see that I have a placeholder for the title. The title is easily changed up here in the inspector. And again, I'm just going to type rotifers on a root. Now you'll see an issue here because the text I entered now is not the same length as the text that used to be there. I've got way too much space off to the left. And again, it's very easy up here in the settings for this text block. I just grab this number for the X position. You can see my cursor is turning to a left-right arrow. I grab it, click it, and I can move my mouse left and right and position that exactly where I want. Up here to the left is my media pool. And as you can see, I don't really have any clips in here to make a movie. The clips are sitting on my hard drive, along with a piece of music. I'll talk about that in a moment. To bring these in, I just select them all, and I drag them into the media pool. It's important to know that all that's being put in the media pool are pointers to the files that are on my hard drive. If I move or delete these files on the hard drive, let's say I delete that clip, let's delete it. Now if I go back and I look in my media pool, you'll see that that clip is turned red. That means that the link to that clip is broken because the clip is no longer where it's expected to be. I'm going to undo that and put it back, and now you'll see that the clip is normal again. For my background music, I use an AI program called Suno. It's suno.com. It allows me to make instrumental music, and because I have a paid subscription, I have the rights to use this music if I monetize my videos. You can use Suno to play around with without paying. You can use it for free, but just be aware that any song that you create before you have a paid subscription, you can never use later on to make a video that you're going to monetize. For today, I'm using a song that I already made and used on a video, I don't know, a few months ago. And it's jazz, so if I play it, it's just very pleasant, easygoing background music that can go very well with pretty much any type of organism that I'm going to show on my screen. Now that I have all of my clips and my music inside my media pool, the first thing I always do is I put this music on the timeline. And you just do that by dragging, and I put it in audio 1 track. Now that I have the audio in place, what's important for me is to create markers on the timeline that match the beat of the music. By doing this, when I start putting my clips in place, I can make sure to cut from clip to clip exactly on the beat of the music. And it's actually very easy. As I play, I'm going to hit the M key on the beats, and you'll see these blue markers start to appear. I'm not going to go through the whole song right now. I think you get the idea. Through the magic of editing, you can see that I've gone through and I've added markers for the whole duration of the song. The song is about 1.5 minutes. Now it's time to start looking at our movie clips and selecting the portions of each clip that we want to put into our movie. The video I shot was at 2 different magnifications. I used my 4x objective for wide angle dark field, and I used my 40x oil objective for some close-up. As I double click on each of these clips, you can see what kind of clip we're looking at. So some of these, as you see, are zoomed in with a 40x, and this one, for example, is a wide angle dark field. So I'm going to pick one of these, and I think that might be a decent one to use for my title. Now, if I drag this entire clip into my movie, it brings it from beginning to end. And I can go in my movie and edit this down, shorten it, start it a little bit later, move it around, however I want to. But I find that it's actually easier if I determine what part of this clip I'd prefer to use before I drag it into the timeline. So I scroll through the video, and I'm thinking maybe start it around here, and I hit the I key for in on my keyboard. And as you can see, it's just created a little dot there, and that's the in point for the clip that I'm going to use. And then I can move later, let's say somewhere around there, and hit the letter O for out point. And now I've got a sub clip from the bigger clip. When I drag this into place, you can see it's much shorter than the whole clip obviously was. But there's a problem because it doesn't quite reach one of my cut points to match the music. So I'm going to just drag it off to the right just a little bit. And now I know that when it's time to put my next clip in place, it's going to happen right on the beat of the music. So next, I prefer to have kind of this wide angle view to show what these things look like in their environment. So this is one option, and let's see, they're moving around pretty nicely. I can put an in point and an out point, and I can drag that to the timeline. If I wanted it to run across two of these markers, I can just drag it a little bit longer. Then let's look at more dark field. Here's another dark field. We'll put this an in point. And we'll include that worm that's flying through. We have an out point. And we drag this into place. Now this is obviously much longer than the other clips. And I probably don't want that long of a clip. So I'm going to shorten this clip by dragging the endpoint in to here. At any point, I can just hit my spacebar to play. And this is a good way to see if my markers were in the right spot relative to the music. Perfect. So by having these hard cuts right on the beat of the music, I avoid having to use transitions like dissolves or wipes. About a year and a half ago, when I first started making my videos, I was using transitions, and I wasn't timing to the beat of the music. That's fine if that's what you want to do, and it's very easy in DaVinci Resolve to add any kind of transition between two clips. All you have to do is on the left-hand side here, you go to Video Transitions. I can grab Cross Dissolve, and I just drag it over the clip, and you can see that it's putting it right across both of the clips. It uses a default value. I think mine is set to half of a second, maybe shorter than that, but you can change the duration of the dissolve. And then when you play it, you can see that you get a very smooth, beautiful dissolve. I tend not to do that though. So I'm going to delete that dissolve. I prefer these hard cuts as long as they're on the beat of the music. We can continue putting in a couple more clips. So we've already used that one. This one has, if I scroll forward, some views of eggs over here, which I thought were kind of neat. So I'm going to put an out point there. I'm going to go back and put an in point there. And now we've got some eggs here. And let's see, let's put one more. Okay, we'll just use a long scene here. We're almost at the end of the movie, so see if it's long enough to reach. I don't think it is. It's not. So what I can do is this one. Before, I'll stretch it to a cut point, and now we're at the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, I want both my music and my video to fade out. There are several ways to fade out video. You can add a transition such as dip to color. The default is black. So if I play it now, you see it fades out to black. Nothing wrong with doing that. There's an easier way though, without having to add a transition. Let me zoom in so you can see a little better. If I hover over the clip, you'll see this little white marker right at the end. And my cursor changes to a left-right arrow. If I drag that back, I'm creating the same kind of fade to black. Very easy. I can easily control where I do it. I do the same thing as you can see with the music, and I do it to the same spot on the timeline so that they're both fading at the same rate and they both fade to 0 at the same time. Okay, now I have my clips in place. They're matched to the beat of the music, but they don't look so good. The colors aren't popping. There might be problems with white balance. There's a lot that I can do to improve the look of this video. Down at the bottom, I've been on the edit page, but there's also a page called color. When I go into the color page, I can see all of my clips here. Right now I'm looking at my first clip in the video. And this is just the video shot as it was out of my camera. I do use custom white balance in the camera, and you can see that for the most part, the background is a neutral gray. But if you look at the bottom right of the screen, you'll see that I've got a little more blue in the image than I have green and red. So there's a tiny bit of a blue cast in this. Also, you'll see down at the lower ends, the darks, I don't have enough blue. I'm clipping the blue. So the darks are more rust colored, red colored. Now that might be okay, that might be natural, but I do have tools to modify that if I want to. So my goal in color correction is going to be to take these red, green, and blue areas and spread them out so that they reach closer to the top and the bottom. So we're getting a much greater dynamic range in the video. And the way I do that is by using these wheels over here. The wheels control from left to right the bottom. You can look to the picture at the top of the screen and to these red, green, and blue waves over on the right-hand side. You can see that I'm moving the bottom. The next wheel controls the middle, midtones. The third wheel controls the highlights, the top level. And the fourth wheel moves everything up and down. So the first thing I usually do is move my highlights up so they're approaching that second to the top line. I don't want to go all the way up to the top line because I don't want to clip any of my highlights. But now you can see when I've done that, that I've got a blue cast. This blue is really, it's much higher than the red and the green. So the way I can do that in this highlight wheel section is to just grab the blue, move that back down a little. Now you can see I've got a much more neutral look, a much more neutral highlighted background. Another thing I like to do is I pull the midtones down a little bit. This helps create just a little bit of additional contrast. You can see I'm starting to get a little more definition between the lights and the darks, and I find that that helps. However, if I go up to the settings library in the top right and I use the search feature, I can select contrast pop. And contrast pop is an effect that I can add to this clip, and I can increase this detail slider, and you can see if I go way over to the right, obviously that's too much, but it gives you an idea of what this can do. But I usually give it just a little bit of a bump in contrast pop. And now if I play, it looks a lot better than what it did before. It's not washed out. The colors, the neutral colors are much better. Okay. Now I have these other two clips that were shot with the exact same camera settings as that first clip. I don't want to have to go through each one of these and repeat the process that I just went through, but I can very easily apply those settings from the first clip to these two clips. I select these two clips at the end. I right-click on the first clip that I already corrected the color of. I select Apply Grade. Now, this last clip looks okay, but if you look over at the settings on the right-hand side, you'll see that I've reached the top bar and I'm clipping the highlights, and you can see that in the actual video itself. So what I want to do is I just want to scale these back just a little bit. I also have a little bit too much red. This one is a little bit different because there's really no background. I'm shooting amongst the mass of rotifers and eggs, which have a much redder cast, and I want to be able to pull that back a little bit. So I'm going to lower the red. I'm going to bring all of the highlights down just a little bit. Let's bump up that blue so it's about equal. And I'm going to up the contrast pop just a little bit to make sure I get a little bit of definition in the eggs. And that looks pretty good. So there are a few other things I can do in here. There's a mid-level details slider here, and I can just pump up. I don't want to overdo it like that, but I can just pump up, hold on, about level 8, level 9. This is a pretty standard number that I use. I could boost the saturation to boost some color. I'm not going to do that with this. I don't think it needs it. And I think it looks pretty good. And this one, I think it looks okay. Now, one other thing that you'll notice, I have some dust on my camera sensor. Not much, but there's a little spot right there. And the reason I know that this is dust is because if I scroll, that's not moving. If you have the studio version of DaVinci Resolve, you can go up into this effects library and you can search for dead pixel fixer and drag it onto this clip. And what that does is it allows you to place a patch over this little spot. And it's not really a dead pixel, but it is, I can treat it like a dead pixel because it's not moving. And now it uses the area around it frame by frame to remove that dead pixel and fill it in with something that corresponds to whatever is around it at that moment. If I scroll off to the left, I've got a couple more of them here. And there are some fainter ones. Like here's one up here that's bugging me. Here's one. I don't normally get all of them, but there are a few that just bother me. Now that I've used the dead pixel tool to hide these dust spots on this last clip, I also have these other two bright field clips where I'm going to see those same spots. And I don't want to have to go in and have to use that tool the same way over and over again. What I can do is I can take this dead pixel node on the node tree from this clip, and I can hit Command C for copy. Then I can go to another bright field clip and hit Command V for paste. And it's pasted the same node with those dead pixel cover-ups already in place. I've finished work on the color of the bright field, but I haven't yet done the dark field. Dark field doesn't take too much work because, as you can see, the wave patterns already fill up most of my dynamic range. The only thing I really want to look at is this background. Is there a cast to it? You can see that there's a bit of a blue cast, and I can fix that down on the left wheel, the lift wheel, by just sliding the blues down just a little bit in the shadows. That's all I'm going to do. I might increase the detail a little bit. I could always add a little bit of contrast if I want to. That's easy, no problem. And then I go to this one. This one, the blacks, the background looks fine. If you look at the chart, they may be a little bit clipped, so I'm just going to raise them just above the line. And I'll add that contrast pop. I could add some color boost if I wanted to. I can add just a little bit, make those colors pop, go back and do the same thing to this one, just to give it a little color pop. That's it. Theoretically, we've got a video. However, remember I told you that my first clip should be playing inside the text. Remember, if I disable this clip, you'll see my text in the background. So the way I've set this up is I actually have to change the composite mode to foreground so it plays inside the text. And then you'll remember that I mentioned sometimes if I start with a bright field image inside the text, I'd prefer to have a black background. And I can do that by turning off this gray background So this is how I prefer to start a movie when I have bright field. You can easily see the words Time Microcosmos, and it looks pretty good in there. Now, the title on my template happens to be white, which doesn't look so great against bright field. So I'm going to turn that to black. I go back up to the title. I select black. And I don't need the drop shadow, so I'm going to scroll down and turn off that drop shadow. Maybe make the text a little bit bigger. Rotifers on a root. And that's good enough. So now we play that back. Technically, right now, I could publish this video, it would be done. But some of these scenes aren't the most interesting, so I can add a little bit of dynamic motion to these scenes. Maybe zoom in a little bit, or zoom in and slide right or left. There are tools that you can use to do this kind of automated for you, but I prefer to have control myself and do it with keyframes. So what I do is I go to the first frame of this clip, and over in my inspector here, these little diamonds indicate which features I want to have a keyframe for at this point. I'm going to hit the one at the top which turns all of these on, which means that at this point in time, I'm creating an anchor point for the zoom level, the XY position, if I have any rotation, whatever I want to do. This is a fixed point, and I'm going to leave everything normal at this point. I want the clip to start the way I shot it, and then I'm going to zoom in. The way I zoom in is I go to the last frame of this clip, and I create another point, and now I can change the zoom. I can slide this over. It's probably enough. It might even be too much. And now you'll see when I play this clip, this next clip, maybe I start with an anchor point zoomed in, slide that off to the left, maybe move that up a little bit, and then I go to the last clip and I create an anchor point, and I take this back down to the defaults. 0, 0 everything out. And now you'll see that this one shrinks down, slides over a little bit. Very nice. If I go to this one, maybe we want to get an idea of how big these eggs are. So one thing I haven't shown you yet is over on the left-hand side, I've got something called power bins. Bins are folders. So where I have title, where I have audio, these are just folders where I could move my media into these and create a media folder. It's for organization only, but these power bins are a little bit different because power bins contain items that can be used in every movie. These are native to the entire application, DaVinci Resolve. So in here, I've created my field of view indicators that I can overlay. And I've created a white one and a black one for my 40x. And all I have to do is drag this to my timeline. And you'll see now I have a field of view indicator. I can make it last the entire clip if I want. I can fade it in and out just like I faded out at the end of the movie before. And now and maybe I don't want that to last the whole clip. I can have it fade out after just maybe 5 seconds. Also, usually, I don't like it at 100% black because I'd prefer people pay more attention to the organism on the screen. But you can change the opacity very simply, and I usually take this down into the low 60s. So now you see it's still very visible, but it's not as in your face. Okay, I think that's enough editing for this example. Now it's time to publish the movie so that I can share it. What do I do? Well, remember that I've shot in 1080p, but I want to publish it in 4K. How do I do that? You have to have the paid version of DaVinci Resolve to do what I'm about to do. I highlight all of my clips, and over on the right, I go to Superscale, and I select 2x. Now what that's going to do is when I publish, it's going to double the size of this video from 1080p to 4K. Now I'm ready to publish. I go to the Publish page. I give it a name. Where do I want to save it? We'll save it on my hard drive. All the video settings are okay because this is part of my template. If I wanted to publish this directly from the application to YouTube, I can put in the settings here. I've already linked my YouTube account into the application. So I can give it a title, a thumbnail, a description, set the privacy, and upload it. Right now, I'm not going to do that. And then I can look at my audio and normalize the audio, which means kind of control the overall sound for YouTube. And that's it. I add it to my render queue, which now has moved it into a queue here. It's not publishing it yet because I could line up a whole bunch of videos and then do them all at once. But all I have to do is hit the Render All button, and it's rendering. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, it took a little over 2 minutes to render my video. The final video is now here. Let's open that up and take a look. I'll end my commentary here, and I'll put the complete video at the end of this recording so you'll be able to see the final result.